Hi there, Phil Simborg, USBGF Teaching Pro, and today our subject is action doubles. This is a big subject. It's a much bigger topic than I can cover in a short video, but one of my favorite sayings is you don't know what you don't know, so hopefully I can point out a few things or areas of the game that might identify a possible hole in your game, and you can go out and study and learn on your own, because that's really the only way to learn. A good teacher teaches people how to learn on their own and teaches himself out of a job, and that's my goal when I teach. Action doubles are different from your typical double. What this position is clearly an action situation. What do we mean by that? It's a situation that on one roll things can change enormously. And when things can change enormously, you might be a lot more likely to give the cube, because if you do lose your market, the swing is too huge to where you lose your market by so much you're very, very sorry you didn't double. Well, in this case, it's pretty clear that if you hit, you're pretty sorry if you didn't double, and if you don't hit, you're in pretty big trouble. So you have to weigh the sorry from the trouble. In this position, if you hit, are you gin? By gin, do I mean do you win? Do you think you got it won a really tremendous percentage of the time? Well, the answer is, even if you hit here, your opponent is going to come in 20 out of 36 times, and you should know that. The odds of rolling a 1 are 11 out of 36. The odds of rolling a 2 are 11 out of 36. So 11 and 11 is 22. However, you can't count 2-1 and 1-2 twice. So there's 20 times to come in on a 2-point board. He's favored to come in. And if he comes in even after you hit, he's got lots of life. So this is just too volatile and too big a swing that even if you hit, you don't really have a gin position. And if you don't hit, you're in big trouble, and you certainly don't like him holding the cube. So let's see what the answer is. This is no double for that reason. It's a big mistake. Oh my goodness, and for money, it's a beaver. Now let's change the position. Well, before we do that, let's also think in terms of something else. As you can see, for money, this is no double, not even close. Red is a tiny, tiny favorite. He actually gets gammon. Red actually gets gammon more than he wins gammons. But it's a whole different ballpark when you look at match play. There is a match score where you would double this. At 2 away, 4 away, you would double this position, because the gammon values become 1.0 for red, and all of his losses, gammon losses, are worth 0 when the cube is at 2. So you have to also study these positions for match play as well. I'm going to stay pretty much with money today, but I just want to show you how important it is to study these things for match play. Let's make red 2 away. I'm sorry, blue 2 away. Blue needs 2 points to win the match, and red needs 1 point to win the match. At this score, you should have a real strong trigger finger for doubling when you're losing 4 away, 2 away, especially when there's a potential for some gammons involved. So just to show you, it's a huge double. The gammon values changed. Why is that? Why was it 13% and 16% now? Because you play differently at this score. And Extreme Gammon recognizes that when you need more gammons, you're going to play more to win gammons. So even though the wins are still about 50-50, when these gammons are worth 0 and these gammons are worth 1, that's enough to turn it into a double. You certainly don't want to hit, and you will certainly lose your market in most cases after you hit here at 2 away, 4 away. Let's go back to money, though. Money is also what I call a normal match score, which means that you're at scores like 11 away, 11 away, that play pretty much like money on the initial cube. What would make this a double? Well, one thing that would make this a better position for red is, let's do this. Let's take red and let's give him a better board. Now how often will blue come in after the hit? Only 11 times out of 36. And if he does come in, he's going to have a lot of trouble escaping because he has to roll a 6. So this is the kind of an action double that makes sense. This is a double. It's still a big take, as scary as it is for blue. And by the way, one of the things that I insist all of my students do is never ever give the cube without using Woolsey's law. Ask yourself first, if you're blue, would you take or pass? And if you're not sure, you would absolutely double. But in this case, you should be pretty certain that you should take. It's a big take because you know when red misses, you've got a strong, strong game, and we'll look at that in 1 second. But this is a clear, clear double. This is a real strong action double. You're going to hit with all 3s and 4s. That's 20 times, plus you hit with a 1, 2. So you're hitting 22 times, and those 22 times you hit, it's pretty much curtains for blue, and he gets gammoned a bunch after you hit. So it's clearly a double. Let's take a look at another variation before we get into well, actually, let's look at what happens when red misses or dances. Let's pretend red gives blue the cube and red dances. That's always got to be a strong consideration for whether or not you should give the cube in the first place. What do you think blue should do here? Do you think blue has a redouble? Well, again, the first thing I do is I ask myself, if I'm red, am I taking here? If blue rolls a 1 here and cleans up both blots, I'm pretty sick. If he rolls a number that covers one and lifts the other, I'm in pretty bad shape. If he covers both, I'm going to get gammoned a bunch in addition to losing. This is a big pass. Let's put blue on roll. And it is a big pass. So it was right to double, even though when you miss, you're passing. So, but you're hitting 22 times, and that means you're missing 14 times. So this is like a one-roll position where 22 times you win and 14 times you lose. I like those odds. I'd rather play for twice as much with those kinds of odds, especially when he's not too good to double and winning too many gammons after the miss. Okay, now let's change the position again and look at something else. Let's take this position, put the cube in the middle, and ask yourself here, would you double? No, let me put it, we just did this position. Let me put it down here. Now blue's got a stronger position because he has these points. He's got more ways to cover, and this is actually stronger for blue. But what do you think is the cube action now? Well, it's still pretty much a one-roll position. It's still pretty much the 22 times you win and 14 times you lose. So it's still going to be a double. I got to put red on roll. And it's still going to be a double. Now, the reason I'm showing you this position is because I want to illustrate one other point about action doubles. Let's say you already have the cube, which is quite a possibility in a position like this. Is it a redouble? Well, the answer is it's not a redouble. Now, why would this be a double and not a redouble? Well, there's a couple of reasons, and I'm going to eliminate one of those reasons in a second. One reason is on the initial double, most people play, especially in a money game, with the Jacoby rule, where gammons don't count until the cube has been turned. So this is a double partially because you have to activate the gammons, and also because when you miss, he's going to double you out anyway. So you may as well be playing for 2 or 2 rather than 1 or 1 when you're a pretty big favorite. Let's eliminate the Jacoby rule. You're going to see it's still a double, but not by as much. And if you're a match player, it's usually not a bad idea to eliminate the Jacoby rule, even when you put a position in for money, so that you don't have that affected. You can see it was a very large double in order to activate gammons. When you don't have to activate gammons, it's still a small double. Let's plus it. Plus is a better analysis than plus. So it's still a small double. But again, it wouldn't be a redouble, or even close to a redouble, because he doesn't have access to the cube. If you're holding the cube already, you've got a strong reason to hold this cube. Because if you miss, then you might still win this game. He can't redouble you out because he's not holding the cube. So it isn't a 22-14 situation anymore. The 14 times that you miss, you might still win if you're holding the cube. but when it was in the middle, he has access to the cube. So in most situations, except at unusual scores and where the score comes into play, but in most situations, you need to be stronger to redouble than to double. Now, I've just shown you a few variations of one position on an action double. There are so many different kinds of action doubles where you're likely to lose your market big time on one roll. They're called highly volatile situations, and you really should be having a quicker finger on the trigger in many of these kinds of positions. But you have to be careful. And how are you going to learn when to double, when to redouble, when it's not, when it isn't, which variables are in play? It's practice. You have to put in a bunch of different positions and different types of positions, but I recommend that you do it the way I just did it. You take a single position and do variations of it. Make it slightly different. Change the score. Change a couple of checkers. Change the cube being in the middle or on one side, and that way you're bunching your memory. It becomes a memory that is much more able to be accessed, and you're also learning how slight shifts, for example, this shift of whether or not you had this point made or not, is going to matter as far as whether you double or not, and whether or not he has more covers has some effect on it as well. And as we saw, it didn't have as big an effect as we thought. Putting these two checkers here didn't seem to change the double action that much. So, this is my quick overview of action doubles. If you already know this stuff very well, great. Most of us don't. Most of us, including myself, need to put in a lot more work and a lot more time on just action doubles to get it right. And then, when you're done, start looking at different scores, because 2-away, 4-away is very obvious because you have a gammon value of 1 and 0 on the other side. But there are other more subtle scores where the gammon values aren't so obvious. At 5-away, 5-away, the initial cube, the gammon value is 0.655. On the recube, after you recube, the gammon value goes down to 0.233. Becomes very, very low on a recube. So at match scores, it gets much more complicated, and you have to simply start studying and practicing these things. And again, do them in groups or bunches so that your memory can access it better. Thank you for watching. Thanks for your support of the USBGF. Hope you found this interesting. I'm on my way to Cleveland this weekend, and where I'm giving a lecture, and we're going to have a lot of fun. It's the people-friendly tournament. I hope to see many of you there. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.